Well, hello, folks. I'm L.A. Little, and this is your daily NeoTA wrap, where we take a look at these markets and we do it from a neoclassical perspective. Each time we ask ourselves what happened today and what does it tell us about the coming ones. I do the show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time. Archived on YouTube. It's under the channel L.A. Little. You can get it any place, anytime. It's at your convenience. Markets, let's take a look at what happened here in the markets today. It really was, it actually was a flat day. Really nothing took place. If I look at the scoreboard here, basically flat across the indexes. Gold was down a bit. USO, so oil, natural gas down, bonds up slightly, dollar down. So not really anything going on there. If we look at the indexes themselves, what you're going to see is these guys are slowly wearing themselves out. So we had a little bit more volume today than we did on Friday. It was an inside day. We're right at what probably is more than likely the top of the range. Somewhere in this area, most likely, top of the range. Maybe that range extends to here, may end up extending down to there, but you know, top side, we're right at the top. Swing point high here. If you get over that, well, you can go after the next one. But folks, what a run. And you know, it just seems to be petering out up here at the top. But you had more volume. Inside day doesn't really tell us anything. If we take a look at the other indexes, let's just flip through them right quick. So the Dow, same thing, although the Dow actually closes higher, has less volume. And the Dow has a long way to go to get up to those highs that you saw just on the S&P. If we look at the NASDAQ now, the NASDAQ is already at and over those highs. So the break of that, you can tell here with the arrow. So you got over the swing point high. You had less volume. So it's a suspect breakout. Today you go over it, and actually it looks like you close over 44.8626 yesterday. No, close back under it. So you basically have another 2-bar. So you go over, back under, a little less volume. That's a 2-bar reversal at what should be resistance. So the NASDAQ's actually saying it's going to try to pull back. NDX looks almost the same, although it actually closes higher. It looks like 40.45, just barely. At swing point high, 40.4879. So you go into it, back underneath it, so you basically fell on an attempt to break out of the swing point high. So NDX also telling you the same sort of story that you're seeing on the NASDAQ. And then we go over to the Russell. Now the Russell actually tried to pull down, but it did not, it didn't test anything of significance on the way down. You know, a test to me on the Russell to try to give us some clue would have been coming back into something like maybe this swing point high, but you can see we didn't get down there. And so the Russell fades down, really just kind of going sideways here. It's about 4 or 5 bars of sideways movement here, no volume, nothing really there to tell us anything. So the only 2 clues on the index themselves really is in the tech sector with the NASDAQ and the NDX. Both of those giving us a little bit of a clue that this market's going to try to pull back. Now, outside of that, we're not really seeing anything. Let's pop over, look at the major sectors right quick. So we knew that we had several of these trying to break higher. Actually already broke higher. Biotech, one of them, and biotech extends again. I saw Amgen after hours was trading higher. So the biotech's still stretching. Nothing wrong there. IYT stretches as well. So the strong continue to be strong. Now the SOX was struggling, and that SOX was trying to do a test of the swing point, or the swing point lows high. That's the retest regen zone, 83.22, and you close 83.54. So you're over it. So what I would like to see if I'm a bull is I'd like to see it close over it one more time. That would probably tell me this thing has turned into a range trade. Then if we go to the weaker ones, the XLB, volume just swells one more time as this thing comes back. So it goes in to do a test of the retest regen. There was a low over here before. Test into it, fails, comes back, fails to get over it. So it succeeds on the regenerate lower, volume expands. That one still looks like it's going to try to come back more. XLE was the other one that was struggling today, and even though it was down about 2% here, it doesn't look that bad, because look at what it did. It came into this bar, right? So the top of this bar, which is where your volume is, you come into it, you have no volume, and you do a little hammer. That actually looks like it's going to try to bounce tomorrow. So the XLE, even though it was trading down 2% today, doesn't look nearly as bad as it sounds. XLF, still climbing, no volume. XLI, this one was doing a retest regen, well, a bullish retest regen, and it comes into it, it holds. So far, those bullish retest regens are holding. XLK has gotten over the swing point low and just trying to work its way up higher. So really nothing different there. XLP, test the highs, fails. So that one actually says try to pull back. XLU, and these are safety guys. XLU, it's not extended yet, but it is an over and an under. XLV probably pulls higher. Let's see, XLV. Let's see if that one pulled higher based on the biotechs, and it did. So the XLV is trying to get over this swing point high now, 65.31, and just shy of it. So I suspect tomorrow it's going to try to test and break over the highs. And XLY still stuck in this retest regen zone, but it is over at 66.23, closes over it again. That looks like a range trade too. So sector wise, you kind of got that whole range trade thing still working, with the exception of the bullish retest regens are still holding. So now if they hold and regenerate higher, then that range we're talking about is actually going to expand farther to the upside. And it's hard to imagine it, but right now that's what the sectors are telling us. They're not giving anything up as of yet. Now, so we have a little bit of a mixed picture then, in that we have a couple of indexes saying, okay, we're going to try to pull back, and then you've got sectors that are so far not wanting to do so. Let's flip through real quick and see what these foreign market looks like. So as I'm just going to glance at them as we go through them. That looks like a washout. One of the members was asking about it today. Big volume spike down, and it holds pretty well in Brazil after the elections. So maybe all the bad news is priced in. The CAX. So the CAX is failing at the swing point low retest regen and trying to regenerate lower. So is the DAX. FTSE was much weaker and also does the same thing. So all of Europe trades down. Our friends up in Canada really can't get anything going either. Let's see what the Hang Seng and the Hong Kong markets looks like. Boy, those can't get going either. And Hong Kong, same thing. So really, just really nothing in the way of any kind of real buying support still throughout Asia as we look through these charts. The only one that had bounced was the Nikkei, but I suspect that one's going to also try to come back in as well pretty soon. So Asia still weak. Europe was weak again last night. Who else but us? Take it higher, right? But I suspect we're getting to the end of the rope ourselves as well. Mixed signals on our markets. Overseas markets still pointing lower, and really no bounce to them yet. And let's quickly take a look. I want to see what the dollar looks like at this point. So the dollar tried to pull back today, and nothing really there. So, you know, in general here today is not really telling you anything. I mean, you got a couple of little signals, and they're mixed with respect to the sectors. So world markets still struggling. Domestic markets still doesn't want to give it up. And I'm looking at gold, and gold's the same way. So I think, if you think about the calendar, you got the Fed on Wednesday. They start their meeting tomorrow. They're going to report on Wednesday. And I think that's going to be the big news. You do have a lot of earnings this week, continuing all week long. Facebook's a big name tomorrow. There's a number of big names this week. And as we thin out, not thin out, but as we get deeper into the earnings season, typically those earnings aren't quite as good as they have been. Let's look at a couple of members. So the synopsis here to me is with the Fed coming up, you're probably going to see another flat day tomorrow. Let's take a look at what some of the members were asking, or some viewers were asking. Happens to be members in some cases and not in others. One of them was asking about this, which is the IEO, which is basically the oil and gas exploration. So it's kind of like the OIH. And I didn't go inside to see what's inside this versus the OIH. Let me see if the OIH looks pretty much the same. And it does. So basically these look to be about the same. Question was, is this time to buy? So as we saw on just a second ago on the XLE, XLE came into this big bar from the October 16th, held, had less volume, looks like it wants to try to flip around. Now the XLE, of course, is not really just oil and gas exploration. That's your integrated oils. So a little bit different picture there in terms of what you're dealing with. So this comes back 196 into 175. You got more volume. This to me looks like it's going to still try to test a little bit lower. I wouldn't be surprised to see it get into the high of the low. Let me see what the volumes were on the OIH. And the OIH actually is already almost into it. And so I suspect that the IEO is going to do the same. Let's look at these on a weekly, because the question was, is it time to buy on a weekly time frame? And my answer earlier, because it was a member, I jotted him back this morning, my answer was, let's let them test and see if we're going to get something. And they definitely tested today, down 2%. Let's go to the IEO again. And yeah, this looks pretty close. So the IEO is a little clearer than the other two in that it's testing high volume lows and it doesn't have the volume. And it actually did a reversal. That low was 76.90, but you closed under it. So I would watch the daily as the signal. Your problem here, and the question was, is will this come back to 90? And yeah, it can. I think your first, what you should be expecting is this high to start with, which is 84.28. So if you're thinking about 84.28 on that time frame, what you'd really love to do is catch this coming into this high of the low. So that's 74.29. That gives you a 10-point move, and then you can put a 5-point stop on it. And so that's the way I'd try to trade this. See if it'd come in a little bit deeper this week. Let you catch it somewhere into this area here, this little congestion area in here. And that would probably be the best place to try to pick it up. So, it's an okay setup. These things can give you big moves when they finally flip. And so you want to catch it low enough to where your reward risk works and you see that it probably doesn't want to break down. Now, if you had more time and was more patient, you'd see that some volume come into this for a major turn. But I think what you're really trying to do here is catch 10, 15 points on it. And that's not a bad spot to take that risk. So I kind of like that. There was another question. I put out videos on a daily basis, these trading videos. And I actually had a video on Amgen back here, and I called it a go-to biotech. You can go back and take a look at it if you want to. And then this morning I talked about selling in the strength on the bounce. And then so I had a viewer write and say, okay, so you give me one thing that says buy, which was Amgen, and then you give me another one that says sell into the strength. How do I decide what to sell or what I should be buying? Well, my answer to that really is, you should be looking at these charts and these stocks and only buying those that are strong, and you try to buy them somewhere where they make sense, some sort of a small retrace. For example, if we look at Amgen, Amgen reported tonight. Tomorrow will be a good test. You got a swing point high here, has some good volume on it, right? You do a suspect breakout over it, although you had tested with a lot more volume. So I would think this area right here, right, is probably going to be a pretty good spot to think about trying to pick some up. I drew it wrong, so let's do it again. This area right here, down to that low. And you can see the support zone is the entire range of that. So Amgen, for example, you could try to pick a little bit up here at the top of this range and some more down here if it fills it. But why would you buy Amgen? Well, because it's a strong stock. It's in a sector that's strong, and it's strong. That makes a pretty good combination that if the market pulls back, as soon as the money comes back into the market, you're probably going to see this take off again. And so you want to buy stocks like that where you've got, a waiting set of buyers out there at your back supporting you. And you want to buy them back on these dips, these retest regens. Now, what I showed in the other video, and I'm not going to go through all these, but what I showed in this video was weak stocks that were retracing, that were coming up. And I'll just show you like one of them. I think one of them was AXP, for example, American Express. So, and this wasn't the worst of the worst. This was one of them. So this thing's coming back up, right? Look at this chart compared to what I just showed you in Amgen. This is a very different picture. Amgen's breaking out the new highs. This one's just trying to come back in and do a retest regen off the prior lows, right? So when I look at this is coming back in, and then what is it going to do? It's going to try to regen lower. So if I'm going to buy this, I certainly don't want to buy it here. And if I have it, what do I want to do? Well, if I think it's probably going to regenerate lower, at least come back down and test this, 82, 83, maybe 81. I don't want to hold it from 87 back to 81. I want to sell some. That was what that video was about. That was the whole point of that video, is like if you have some of these stocks, especially if you have some of these stocks and you were sweating bullets when this thing was crashing on you, then use the strength to lighten up on those that are weaker and rotate that money into the stronger ones as they pull back, retest, and regen. That's what this was about. So that's the point. Okay, I'm going to cut it a little bit short tonight. And those were the questions that were out there for me. It was a very dull day, not much to talk about, and I didn't have a chance really to prepare something else for you. So let's make it a short show tonight, and we'll pick it up again tomorrow. I expect tomorrow is going to be almost as dull as today. And then we're going to get the Fed on Wednesday, Bank of Japan Wednesday night. That's where the fireworks are going to be, folks. Have yourself a great one. Thanks for joining me. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Good night.